I'm Rachel Grimm, and welcome to the podcast With All Your Mind. I'm here to help us understand the Bible with cultural and historical context, linguistic info, and other cool stuff. Enjoy. All right, good morning, guys. This is Rachel, and this is With All Your Mind. And I usually say good afternoon. It's when I pretty much always record my podcasts, but it is summertime. My boys are home. You'll probably hear them in the background a bit. They're in the living room, crashing Hot Wheels cars into each other or against objects. I'm not really sure what's going on. I told them don't be too loud, which means they'll definitely be loud. So I am just going to give you guys a couple of updates this summer. I can't record a whole lot because it ended up only being a 5-week break that I had between classes. I thought it would be at least 6 weeks, if not 7. And I just don't have quite the brain space or time to record a whole series like I was planning on. So I'll tell you my plan, what my plan was going to be, and some future plans. First of all, I'm going to tell you about the class that I just finished. I am doing a master's program at the University of the Free State, which is in South Africa. It's entirely online. It's a 2-hour Zoom call once a week, followed by 10 to 15 hours of coursework every week. My final exam was a take-home final exam, and it took about 6 hours. One of the guys in my class took 11 and a half hours with it, so you can definitely spend a lot of time on this class. And what we did was basically went over, and the program is Hebrew, but I have been telling people off and on that it's Hebrew linguistics because it's a deep dive into grammar and syntax and the history, like the cousin languages to Hebrew and what the source languages are for Hebrew. And we're going to be doing, I'm not going to get there yet. So this class, we went through a 700-page advanced grammar and syntax book as one of our textbooks for the course. It's an 8-credit course. Each class is 8 credits. And this actually is the prerequisites for the master's program. I'm not even officially into the master's program because in South Africa, it's a European model for masters. And what they do is they break apart the coursework and the actual research for your thesis. The coursework is actually prerequisites, and it's for what they call a bachelor honors. And you do it after you finish your bachelor's. And it is the coursework for the master's, but you don't have the master's degree until you do the prerequisites as a part of the bachelor honors. And then you spend nearly the entire master's on the research. So you get really in-depth in the research. I'm loving it. It is awesome. I am learning so much. I am able to do things that I never thought possible. I know so much more about Hebrew than I ever thought I would ever know. I am very happy about it. And I can't wait to do more, though I'm very happy for a break because it was very intense. So I am back in my 6-year-old's bedroom because they're out in the living room playing and did not want to move. And they don't know that this is my future office because we're going to kick my 6-year-old out and make him move into his 4-year-old brother's bedroom, which they're not going to be entirely happy about, but Ryan needs an office too to be able to work from home sometimes. So it'll be good for everybody. So that was the course that I just finished a week and a half ago. And I'll start another class second week of July. And that's less than a month now. I only have about 3.5 weeks until that class starts. And that is going to be a textual criticism class, which I have 3 episodes about textual criticism, if you don't know what that is. So you can go back and listen to those. But what our class is going to do, as far as I know, is we're going to be looking at the Dead Sea Scrolls and the Septuagint, which is written in Greek. We have episodes about those as well. And comparing and contrasting them with what we typically use for the Hebrew Bible for the Old Testament. The main source text that everybody uses for translating English Bibles is called the Masoretic text. That's the main text. And now, because we have the Dead Sea Scrolls, you will find footnotes in your Bible saying, but the Dead Sea Scroll says this, or the Dead Sea Scroll says that, because there can be variations. And there's long stories, I won't get into it, of why there are variations. But what we're going to be doing in the next class is looking at the Dead Sea Scrolls and the Septuagint, which is the Greek translation of the Old Testament done in about 200 BC, and looking at the differences and why and where does it come from and how maybe they're related or not related in Hebrew and all that stuff. So I don't know all the details for that, but that class is going to be starting in about 4 weeks. I don't know how it's going to be managed because I think I'm the only one in our class, and it's a very small class. There's only 5 of us that knows Greek. So looking at the Septuagint, I'm not sure how that is going to work. So that is what is happening. But I gave myself a little project to do instead of doing podcast episodes. One of the main goals I have for doing this Hebrew Masters, one of them is just because I've studied Hebrew for 12 years and I don't have any official degrees in it. So I can say a lot, but I'm not quite sure if I absolutely know what I'm talking about. And anybody that's anybody doesn't have to take me seriously because I don't have a degree in it. And I, decided I need to either do something about this or move on in life. And I really didn't want to move on in life. And that's why I'm doing the degree, so that I know what I'm talking about and can actually use it purposefully. So one of the things that I want to do it purposefully with is just to teach Hebrew. I love teaching. If I can teach language, I'm very happy. If I can teach most anything, I'm pretty happy about it. But I like teaching language too. So I hope to eventually teach Hebrew in some capacity. But the other thing that I'm really into is helping with Bible translation. I've always been interested in Bible translation. I've always wanted to help in some way, but I know, practically speaking, that a lot of the roles and ways that I could help are not conducive to being a mom of 2 young boys. I'm not going to be taking month-long trips to other countries to help with Bible translation workshops. It's just not going to happen. We're not going to be moving to Madagascar or the Democratic Republic of the Congo or Nepal anytime soon to help with Bible translations full time. So those things are just not possible for us. And I'm okay with that. But one of the things that is very needed for Bible translation, for anybody that learns biblical Hebrew, is when you typically learn a foreign language, you'll have readers. You'll learn some vocabulary, and then you'll start reading like Dick and Jane type stories in that target language. Super simple, like Jose read a book. Jose read to the library, if you're learning Spanish. Or Francois read a book. Francois went to the library when you're learning French. But when you're learning biblical Hebrew, there is not a lot of simple readers like that in biblical Hebrew because it's a dead language, right? You don't have Dick and Jane stories in biblical Hebrew. You do have it for modern Hebrew. I have a set of books on my bookshelf for modern Hebrew, but it's different enough. And the grammar is different, the vocabulary is different, and it's a closed set. It's a closed corpus, is what they call it. There's no more being made. It's a dead language, so nobody living is a native speaker. So they're not creating more content in this language. So I know that that is a major hole in biblical Hebrew. And there's the buzzer from my dryer, if you can hear it in the background. It'll buzz one more time. You're in the middle of my house right now. So that's a hole. That's a need for people to learn biblical Hebrew, because typically what you'll do is you'll learn some vocabulary, you'll learn some grammar, and then you'll be thrown into some narrative in the Old Testament that you'll still need a ton of notes about. And it's hard. It's just hard. And it's discouraging for people to learn. And you have to be really persistent and really passionate about languages to get anywhere. And if you haven't known this, a lot of seminaries and Bible colleges are just taking the biblical languages out of the curriculum. They're not requiring it anymore because students get too discouraged. They don't want to do it. They don't necessarily do well in it. And they're kind of seeing it as, hey, if we don't have to do this, maybe we shouldn't make them do it anymore. And they're canceling it. They're taking those languages out. So people don't know. Pastors, professors, educators, theologians don't necessarily know biblical Hebrew and biblical Greek anymore because it's not required so much anymore. So anyway, all that to say, there is a need for easy reading in biblical Hebrew for people to be able to learn the text, to learn the language. So the project I gave myself for this little break, because I needed something fun, and I'm a nerd, and this is still fun for me, was to translate something into biblical Hebrew. So I went through our kids' books on our shelf, and I pulled out a golden book. You know what these are? Golden books. It's little hardback books with a gold binding on them. Children's books from the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s that are usually nature themed and very easy to read. Usually kind of repetitive. Like there's ones like The Little Red Caboose. There's ones, and there's a bunch of new ones. If you go to any grocery store, they'll have one stand of books, and they'll be golden books, but they'll be like Frozen, Mario. We saw one the other day that was Minecraft at our local grocery store. So they're starting to produce these books about movies and popular culture content. But from the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, it was original books. Very simple, very easy to read, usually about nature, the animals of Farmer Jones. So simple stories. So I pulled one of those and I sat down with it for about 5 days and I translated it. And it is very exciting because that's very difficult to do. But I then met with 2 Bible translators that I meet with about weekly to work on Bible translation, just to read the Hebrew Bible and to talk about it. And they're going to review it with me and talk about it, and we're going to check it over. And it's very fun. I'm a nerd, like I said, so this is very exciting for me. And so it's very exciting to use what I'm doing with Hebrew very practically. So I'm already starting to do things with it, which is very exciting. You don't want to wait until you're fully graduated before you do anything at all. It's not very motivational. There's a lot of noise going on in the living room right now. Can you hear it? They're going bananas. Anyway, so that was the project that I did instead of doing anything for the podcast. But I am going to do a few episodes because I still want to tell you my idea for what I want the series to be on next and get some feedback. See if you guys are even interested in that. I think it would be really good, but it's going to have to wait. And tell me, hey, I have a friend that is going to look over her golden books and give me any others, or at least let me borrow any more that would be good. I'm also thinking that Aesop's Fables, really simple versions of Aesop's Fables, would be a good idea to translate, because this needs to be a project that is not specific to Americans. Golden books are an American book series. I need something that is more accessible to everyone. One of the Bible translators that is helping me is South African. And actually, she didn't even grow up in South Africa. I forget where she grew up. I think Zimbabwe. But now she's a missionary, Bible translator in Madagascar. And one of the other ones that sometimes comes is in the Netherlands. So it would be much better if these books were a little bit more universally known, or at least not purely American. So let me know if you have any ideas of books, simple, old-fashioned, nature-themed books, because, you know, the word balloon and phone and mittens, like in the what is the book? Goodnight Moon. That was my first idea for what to translate. I was like, oh, there's too many modern words in here. They are not in biblical Hebrew. This is going to get complicated real fast because I can put in modern Hebrew words, but that doesn't help you to learn biblical Hebrew. And the other part of it is that I would make these books into a handbook for translators of explaining why I made the certain decisions that I did with the grammar, with the vocabulary. Because in the book that I did, Home for a Bunny, I'll just give you some ideas of how translation is difficult, okay? There is a groundhog that lives under a log, okay? So there's two words that are not in biblical Hebrew. They're not in the Old Testament anyway. And that's what I'm using as my text to get vocabulary from. So groundhog, I use the modern Hebrew equivalent, which is hamarmota ha'amerikait, the American marmot, because Israel actually has marmots, if you didn't know. You can look it up. We saw some when we were at Tel Dan in the north. But yeah, so this groundhog lived under a log. Now, there is no word for log in biblical Hebrew. There is no word for fallen tree on the ground that is no longer attached to the ground and is mainly just the trunk. That's definition of the log, right? If you look it up, King James Bible does have the word log in there, but it actually means firebrand or poker stick. So you have to think through the concepts of what is the word trying to actually mean. So the word I used for log, I took out of Daniel, I think it's Daniel 4 or Daniel 5. And it is the word that was used for when Nebuchadnezzar had a dream and he was the great and mighty tree that filled the whole earth, and the birds nested in its branches, and the beasts of the field found shelter under its shade. And then the tree was chopped down and its branches were lopped off, and an iron band was put around the stump. And the picture is basically, hey, King Nebuchadnezzar, you have been proud. You have been rejecting God as the source of your power and your authority. Now your authority is going to be taken from you. And your kingdom is going to be taken from you, and it's going to be bound up. It's going to be restricted. Your power, your authority is going to be restricted. And that's when he went kind of crazy. He turned into a beast himself. He ate grass and his nails grew out like eagle's talons. That whole passage. So for the word that is used for your branches are going to be lopped off, I was thinking, hey, this is a great and mighty tree. These are big branches. When they're on the ground, they're basically logs. So that is the word that I used, that branch word there. It's now I can't even think of what it is. Enough. That's the word I used for log, because everywhere I looked, I was like, that's not quite what I'm going for. It's not a poker stick. It's not like some little stick. A groundhog doesn't live under a stick, but he might live under a big branch that has been chopped off of a tree. So translators really have to work hard to find what is the exact concept that is trying to be conveyed by each word. And there's so many more problems that I ran into that you'd get more bored with, so I'm not going to go into. But when you read your Bible, definitely have some appreciation for the work that has gone into that book, because a significant, major amount of work has gone into that book. And people can get kind of disgruntled about different versions and the ways that things are done. But the more I learn, the more I study, the more respect I have for these people, even for translations that I don't like. I just listened to an interview of the chair for the NIV committee. It's a 15-person committee that works on the NIV translation, and they look over reviews or suggestions that people can send in. You can send in a suggestion to the NIV committee to say, hey, I think this should be different. And they will research it. They will fully research it and decide on it with a vote. And they have to have a 70% majority to change anything in the vote. And so 15 people, what is that, about 11 or 12 people, have to agree that yes, we need to make this change. And that's how they do it. And I'm not a huge fan of the NIV. I think it's a good translation. I use it all the time. It's not my main translation, but I use it all the time. But hearing this guy's detailed philosophy of how they work on things and why and how often they do revisions and all this kind of thing just gave me more respect for the NIV and the way that the committee does it. So all that to say, we have a lot of good stuff in English, and people are not trying to get the Bible. You know what I mean? They're not trying to ruin it when they change it. People are very careful and deliberate with Bible translations, and they're doing a great job. So I will post this one, and then I'll do a few more episodes this month. I haven't even told you yet what the series is that I want to do next. And maybe I'll read you my biblical Hebrew translation of Home for a Bunny, and we'll do that in an episode. And also, if you have any suggestions for children's book to translate into biblical Hebrew, let me know. My podcast email is always at the bottom in the show notes, so you can find it there. And I hope to see you guys again soon. All right, have a good one. Bye.